Speaking of strain in the wrestling business, you were telling me, we were talking on the phone a couple of days ago, you had a run-in one time in your early managing days with an old veteran manager that I had a run-in one time with, and tickled the shit out of both of us.
You're not talking about the general, are you?
The general, the field marshal, Homer Odell. Would you tell the folks your experiences with General Homer Odell?
Well, it's my first experience was with him. This was my very first year managing in the business, and I'm trying to get over, and I was like George Cannon's top manager at the time. And this was Superstars of Wrestling out of Windsor, right? Right, Superstars of Wrestling, but they were also working with the rival promotion, another one that Killer Brooks, Tony Marino, Ben Justice, Jack Kane, when they left the Sheik in late 1974 through 1975, and George Cannon worked together. Yeah. So anyway, I'm like the only manager, and I'm learning, things. And this one day, we're going up to London, Ontario, and we happened to meet a couple of the boys. First, it was Frenchie Martin, who was driving, Blackjack Luca, who I was managing, and we met in Windsor. And there was this other guy who happens to come in, and it's like, oh my God, it's like, is this the guy who I seen pictures of and, in the magazines and stuff? And it's sure enough, it's General Homer Odell. Gets in the car. And I'm like, my God, he's dressed up in like a Nazi outfit, black leather, black this, black coat, black long coat. He's got the steel, helmet on and everything. With the Iron Cross on top of it. Oh, right? Oh, yeah. And, thank God I didn't have to go through, the border crossing with him like that. He was already in Windsor, so I didn't have to deal with that. And I don't know how he got across, but, that here nor there. So anyway, we're driving to London, Ontario, and it's like a little over 2-hour ride. And, early in the conversation, he starts talking weird stuff and all. And at one point, he's got these boots, black leather boots that go up to his knee. And he pulls out this like 12 to 14-inch Luger gun. And I'm like an 18-year-old kid, and I was like, what the? I was scared to death. So anyway, now, not only scared to death of that, now I'm thinking, now they're bringing another manager in, and here I'm first starting, and I'm thinking I'm going to get replaced. But anyway, so I'm watching in the hallway. I was managing, I think, Killer Brooks that night, who was in the main event. And General Homer Odell, I forgot who he was managing. So I'm going to watch him work. So I'm standing in the hallway, and he goes out there. They do the ring introductions, and he gets out, for the ring. The match starts, and Homer Odell grabs a chair, ringside chair, and sits in the corner. And I watch him, and he leans his head up against the ring post. And that's the way he sat the whole match. He fell asleep. So, and the only way he woke up, he had nothing to do with the whole match, like giving instructions or, yelling at the referee. He slept the whole match. And the only way he woke up is when the bell rang, when the match was over. He wakes up, jumps in the ring, raises his guy hand, and, he's the hero and walks out. And it's like, and that was the only time I ever saw him again. Well, Homer Odell is a mythic figure in wrestling for the people that listen to the podcast, the younger generation who are like, who the fuck are they talking about? It's got to be on YouTube. There's a clip when General Homer Odell from Memphis TV in 1977, he was managing Brute Bernard and the Angel, who was Frank Morrell. Okay. And they did a deal with Armand Hussein and Plowboy Frazier, who were the baby faces. And I think Dundee may have been involved there too, but it's out there on YouTube because it's one of the old Memphis tapes that I borrowed from Lawler and saved and retained.
But they're leading up to some type of paint. I think the heels had painted a yellow stripe down Armand Hussein's back, or they did it on yeah. They bring out the bucket of yellow paint. They paint a yellow streak down Armand Hussein's back, show that he's a coward. But then here comes Frazier and the rest of the baby faces, and they make a comeback, and they get this bucket of paint, and they pour the bucket of yellow paint. And I think this was an audible called on the fly because it didn't look like he really was expecting it. Over the top of General Homer Odell's head, and he is covered in yellow paint. And now he's out there by the desk, and Lance is cackling, but there's Brute Bernard and the Angel doing their shit, weebling and wobbling and everything, and acting crazy. And Odell's cutting the promo, and he's screaming, "This ain't no way to treat a field marshal." And Lance is trying to duck because every time he says anything or moves, a yellow paint's flying off of him. And Lance has that Baxter suit on. He don't want to get stained. And Lance says, "Well, come on, Homer, you're going to get paint on me. Shut up before I kiss you." And he, depending on what he had drunk or not drunk or took or not took, he could either be an insane person or, like you said, asleep. They told me the story in Charlotte that he was arrested one time. I guess in the 60s, he was managing Bronco Lubitsch and Aldo Bogny over there as a tag team, and the cops arrested him for shooting at submarines in a lake.
Oh,
he was convinced that the subs were coming in and landing, and he had to be the one to defend the North Carolina coast, but it was a lake. But when I went to Atlanta in the summer of '83, when they sent us down from Tennessee to work for Ole and run the little Georgia towns, right? Homer Odell had been down on his luck because this is 10 years after practically what you're talking about. He hadn't been anywhere in the business in a while. And he'd gone to Ole Anderson in Georgia because he was big in Georgia in his day. And he asked Ole for a job, and Ole said, "Hold on, we're going to have a separate crew running the local towns. You can be the manager." Well, then he didn't think anything more of it. Well, Homer goes and gets a room at the Falcons Rest Hotel down there on Virginia Avenue in Hapeville, next to the airport, where all the wrestlers stayed, where we were going to stay. And Dundee's the booker. He don't know anything about Homer Odell. Well, goddamn. I see the first day that we get there, that we do promos at Atlanta TV, Homer Odell came to talk to Ole Anderson. And that's when they told him that he didn't really have a spot. And then Dundee and the rest of the guys come back and say, "You need to watch out for Homer Odell because you took his job. He's fucking hot." Now, I know, okay, the guy that was shooting at fucking submarines in a lake in Charlotte that lives in the same apartment complex as me is now mad at me, and I've just been in the business for fucking 6 months. Mm-hmm. So I'm shaking like a dog shitting peach seeds. And for 2 weeks, I don't go out alone in the hallway of the Falcons Rest, which looked like the Bates Motel, right? I don't go out alone at night. I take my garbage out in the middle of the day. I go out to meet the guys in the parking lot and go for my rides. I know which apartment. And Homer has also recently been in trouble at the Falcons Rest because his cooking set the room on fire. He had a fire and it burned up a lot of his Nazi memorabilia he had hanging all over the walls. When the firemen broke in, it looked like goddamn Hitler's bunker, right? Mm-hmm. So anyway, finally, one day we're going to go to Augusta. And I'm going to ride with Dundee and Frank Morrell and another one of the boys, Ronnie West, I think. And the other guys are going to follow us. And one of the guys had just left my apartment and closed the door behind him. And I turn around to get my bag, and there's a knock at the door. And I think it's this guy, he's left something. And I open the door, and I'm face to face with Homer Odell. He's got no shirt on. He's wearing shorts and flip-flops. He's got a knife in his hand. I shit myself. I'm telling you, I've nearly smothered myself in shit. And you know what he said to me? He said, "You got any tomatoes?" He was cooking again. He wasn't supposed to, but he was cooking again. And he needed some tomatoes that's what I smelled all down the hallway every time I went out in the hall was Homer's stew, which boy. I don't know what he was putting in it, but it could have been roadkill. But he was a different kind of cat.
He was a different cat and a legend in the business.